This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
The concern here, okay, they're going to reopen the investigation, but who has been maintaining this evidence? Where is the evidence? And, do we know if it actually exists? I mean, that it is still, in fact, there. I guess the big question is who has it in their possession?
Well, what's interesting is the DA who was initially looked at this case. He said he literally found the case file on in a dusty file room with items on it. I think he said a Christmas decorations on top of it. I mean, it had literally been completely shelved. So I think you're going to play the soundbite that Brian Entin got from Shapiro, where he talks about, oh, it was reviewed for years and years, like they were actually reviewing it. Well, it seems like to me more that it was sitting on a shelf under Christmas decorations.
Yeah, actually, let's take a look at that. This is Brian Entin on News Nation and his reporting just the other night on this very case. I'm going to pull it up here over on this screen and press play. I got to say, this is great. Brian actually catches Josh Shapiro. It's not like in his office. It's not like it's a big press conference for this case. This is what literally done at a, you fill in the blanks here on this.
I believe it was some sort of educational fundraising and with kindergartners there. And, Brian was brilliant. He went into this and he has been trying for months now to talk to Mr. Shapiro about this subject and has been, roadblocked, and he had the opportunity, and to his credit, he took it.
And at the time, we have to put some context here. Shapiro does have a connection to the Goldberg family, correct?
The connection is through apparently this uncle, and there are a lot of details regarding it. It's probably a conversation for another time where I could show the whole tree and photos and things like that. But yes, it is believed that there is a relationship between the uncle and other family members and Shapiro.
And not saying that there's any influence or anything wrong that went on here, but just pointing out the facts of it, considering he was the AG at the time and, could have pushed for a stronger investigation, but did not. Here's him kind of being caught off guard just the other day with Brian Entin.
With the Ellen Greenberg investigation, I know you're familiar with it because you were Attorney General. This big development with the medical examiner now saying that he doesn't believe that it was a suicide. What would you like to see happen? Do you think there should be a new criminal investigation?
Well, look, I don't think I should speak for the city of Philadelphia and why they chose to make the decision they did. But let me just offer maybe some broader comments. First off, as a father of four, my heart breaks for the Greenberg family. No parent should ever have to bury a child. And this is a case that I inherited as Attorney General that occurred, if memory serves me, about 6 years prior to me even becoming Attorney General of the Commonwealth. And it was a case that was put on my desk after the city of Philadelphia ruled that Ellen Greenberg died by suicide, not by homicide. That wasn't my decision. That was made years prior by the city of Philadelphia. The case was then sent to the Attorney General's office for investigation. And we looked at every possible angle. There's nothing I wanted more than to give these parents some finality, some answers, some clarity. And we received more evidence, more information during the course of our investigation that sadly didn't show what they wanted it to show, but actually rather pointed to more data, more information that pointed toward a suicide. At some point, the Greenberg family asked that we no longer consider the case. And under the Commonwealth Attorneys Act, I had the authority as Attorney General to transfer that case to a neighboring district attorney, and I did. We transferred it to the Chester County District Attorney, if memory serves me. They looked at it for a couple of years, and they found the same determination as well. There was no evidence there that supported a homicide. There was no evidence there that supported any sort of criminal charges against anyone else. And they closed the case. So over the span of whatever it's been, over 10 years, over a decade, you've had 3 or 4 different law enforcement agencies look at it and come to that same conclusion. The city of Philadelphia were the ones that began this process when they determined the cause of death. That's on them to explain why they determined that. That had nothing to do with the Attorney General's office or any district attorney's office. I'll end this, where I began. My heart really does break for the Greenberg family. And I know that, some maybe feel that lashing out at me in the media is helpful to their cause. I'm not going to stand in judgment of them. These are parents who are grieving and anguished, and again, I think no parent should have to bury a child. Lashing out isn't going to change the evidence here, and I'm hopeful that as this process goes forward, if any new information comes to bear, that it immediately be shared with the Chester County District Attorney and allow the DA there to conduct an investigation of that new material should anything come forward.
Do you think the medical examiner coming forward now, though, and saying he no longer believes it's a suicide is enough to push this forward? Now, I mean, that's a big change.
Yeah, I think that's a question for the DA in Chester County. It has to have some evidence with it, not just someone feeling different. But certainly if there's some evidence that this medical examiner has uncovered, I'm not familiar with that, I'm no longer the AG. If they have new evidence, new information, they should share that immediately. One of the things that was particularly frustrating to me when I was Attorney General is someone would have a press conference, claim to have new information, we would invite them into the AG's office, and then they actually didn't have anything that was particularly new, and they used the media to keep the issue alive. I understand why parents would want to keep this alive. I understand why they would want to find answers. I wanted nothing more than to be able to give them the answers that they wanted. But when you're in the role of being a prosecutor, you have to follow the evidence. And we never saw any evidence to suggest anything different. And then we shared the case with another district attorney, and they found the same.
What a crock of shit. I mean,
let's dissect this, Tony.
Yeah.
First of all, he says, basically he's blaming Philly.
Yeah.
That they were the first ones to make the determination. Well, so are you saying, why are you throwing it back in their lap if you supposedly investigated this for years?
Yeah.
And what did you really do? I feel like he's at such a huge deficit when it comes to facts and understanding everything that happened to her. Also, it seems to me, did they look at the other ME that was hired on this and what they said? They pointed out the fact that, as an example, there was a muscle hemorrhage in the neck, which is commensurate with what happens when you're strangled, and that there was petechia on her eyes that was never denoted by Dr. Osborne, that no scrapings from under the fingernails to see if she had fought. We know of at least 11 bruises, including the wrist, including other bruising, of course, on the neck, on the chest, on the legs, knees. Knees would indicate have your knees dug into that ground. So in any event, basically it's a botched ME exam. And that was the basis for ruling apparently a suicide.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. The fact that he sits there and he says, well, there's just no evidence. All the evidence points to suicide. Has he looked at the evidence? Like, not that there needs to be new evidence, just the stuff that exists is enough to rule it a suicide, or not a suicide, to rule it a murder, a homicide. What is he even talking about? Like, is he just saying the fluff into the air because he knows a majority of people have no idea the details of this case? And, well, if he says this, it must be true.
Well, that's why most of us, when I got my hands on that schematic all that time ago, I can't even remember, over 2 years ago, I immediately posted it. because for me, when I read the autopsy, read all the reports, the parents had contacted me and sent me all the information. And when I read through everything, I was mind boggled, but not until they sent me that schematic.
Yeah.
And that schematic took the autopsy photos and showed exactly where each knife wound was, as well as the dimensions, whether they were serrated or not, as much as they could. Remember, Tony, 2 knives were used,
Mm-hmm.
according to other MEs. What person commits suicide and right in the middle after they've stabbed themselves 10 times in the back, including a 3-inch gash, says, I think I'm going to switch knives now.
I
I'm
forgot
going to go
about that
to a
part.
bigger knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane because he says, according to the other MA, that there were serrated lacerations and straight edge lacerations. Now, I've seen the photo of the straight edge, and again, there was a knife block there. Obviously, this is seen as some sort of crime of passion. There's no evidence that somebody came in and did this, other than somebody that she would have known. And it was, to me, you take the instrumentality or weaponry that you can find easily at your hands. Again, remember too, Tony, it was believed she was on the ground at some time prone because the blood dripped vertical down her face.
Yeah.
But she was supposedly found, and you can see on different photographs, she's leaning against a cabinet. So somebody sat her up, at
Yeah.
least according to the crime scene photos. But then on the tape with 911, he says she's laying down. So who moved her in all these different positions?
And there's no evidence. It all points to a suicide, according to Josh Shapiro, who I seriously. And if he's saying all these other law enforcement agencies all came to the same conclusion, well, shit, you got some very stupid people working in these agencies if they're coming to that conclusion, because the layman can look at this and go, that is physically impossible. It just is.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.